Are you a corporate escapee and wasting valuable time attempting to figure challenges out on your own? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you firsthand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day.
We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello and welcome to Corporate Escapees, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of people who are successfully running their own businesses, hearing their war stories and motivations for making the jump from their corporate gig. I'm your host, Paul Higgins, and our guest today is someone who started their career in fashion, actually studied in Italy, came back to America and took a job that they didn't really love. And to be honest, it completely burnt them out. Bri will explain just how difficult that was. So she left that and she actually completely changed her life. And now she helps women entrepreneurs to find their pathway to dreams. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Bri Seeley. Welcome, Bri Seeley, to Corporate Escapees, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. We're going to get to know lots about you today, Bri. But why don't we start with something that your family or friends would know about you that we wouldn't?
I think one of the things that I've actually, and I've been working on integrating it a little more into my business, is a lot of people see me as very serious and very focused, which I am, but I also have this really kind of fun, silly, jokey side. I have a little bit of a dry sense of humor, and I think people don't often get it because it seems so counter to my usually, like serious business focus side.
Yeah, I've got a friend like that, he'll say something deadpan to you, and I'm always thinking, is he joking with me or is he serious here? I'm not quite sure. I don't know. Do you think sometimes people get that sense with you as well?
Absolutely. I often have to, caveat or follow it up with like, I'm just kidding. And then, I try to laugh a little bit to lighten the mood, to let people know, like, no, I'm just joking. But I think people see me online and I am very focused. I am a very intense person, but I also just have this kind of like beautiful lightheartedness to me that I have not been showing the world as much. But it is on my list to be integrating a little more into my business and my everything. I try to be authentic in all realms of life. And there have been some areas where I'm just a little more afraid to step into that authenticity, but it's shifting, it's evolving. So
yeah. And what are some of the things that you're doing to move that way?
I have been doing a lot more live videos. So whether it's Instagram stories or Facebook Live or whatever, because I feel like when I'm typing things, typing can be so misconstrued, whether it's texting or emails or whatever, unless you're constantly using emoji or, LOL or haha, like people can take things very, very wrong. So I've been doing a lot of videos and a lot of photos and stuff that just kind of bring out my more playful side.
Great. And what are some tips for those people that are a little apprehensive about doing live video? What are some of the key tips that you could share?
Treat it like a Band-Aid and literally just like rip it off. You have to start somewhere. If it's something that you're wanting to do, if it's something that you're feeling called to do, you will never be ready and it will never be perfect. So you have got to start somewhere. If you go back and look at my videos from 4 or 5 years ago, oh my word, like I had no idea what I was doing. In fact, there have been a few that I'm like, I should really go take that one down. And I haven't. Yes. Because it's important for me to be, like I said, that in that authentic space. And for me to only show the perfect side of things is not the real story. I started where I started, just like other people are starting where they're at. And you have to start somewhere. So just take the leap and do it. Even if it's just a little minute one, start with a minute, move up to 2 minutes, jump up to 5 minutes. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And even, I talk to a lot of people in our community to say just record it. And even if it doesn't go live to begin with, just get in the daily habit of doing it. And the more it's like anything, the more you spend time to camera, the more natural it'll be. It'll be like podcasting. I can't go back and listen to my early podcasts. It's just too cringeworthy, but it just, the flow gets there. So that's brilliant. And why don't we go now into your sort of corporate escapee story? Why don't you tell us your story, Bri?
Yeah, absolutely. So I studied fashion. I got a master's in fashion. I came back to the States after having lived in Italy and realized that I had to get a day job. I got a job in fashion, hated it, and immediately just defaulted to getting like a day job, right? So I was in that job for 8 years and I worked my way up. I started as a receptionist and, got a promotion within a few months and just kept getting promotion after promotion after promotion. What I liked about my job was that it was super flexible and I had a lot of freedom within it. And so I was willing to stay on kind of longer than I would have otherwise. I was able to cut my hours back constantly. I was actually able to move to Los Angeles with that job. Even though, I was serving the state of Washington, there were things about it that I liked. And I knew from the day I accepted that job that it was not what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And I basically took it for the money. Mm-hmm. So year after year after year, I was more and more frustrated. The money was great, the flexibility was great, but it definitely wasn't what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And so I had started on the side of my own fashion label. And little by little by little, that fashion label really started picking up. So I started it, I think in around 2007, 2008. And by 2010, I was winning awards. I'd gotten into my first boutique. By 2012, I was showing on runways in, Phoenix and Los Angeles. I'd been picked up by Zappos. I was dressing Toni Braxton. I had some garments that were on The Bachelor. Like all these great things were happening. And so as that was picking up, I was still holding on to my day job. And wow. I had a lot of fears and I had not worked on, I didn't even know at that point what like a money mindset was. Like it just wasn't on my radar. I'd been meditating and starting to open up to stuff like that, but I didn't know what money mindset was. And my money mindset at the time was, I cannot make a living off of my dream. I have to have a day job. And so it got to the point where I kept my day job for so long, up until the point 2014, my boss emailed me out of the blue and was like, hey, I just want to let you know, you either need to come back and be a full-time employee or we're going to cut your pay in half. Wow. And like knowing how my soul felt, I was working 10 hours a week at that time, and that was too much. 10 hours a week was spinning me into panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I was depressed. It was terrible. I could look at my work laptop and have a panic attack. And so I just knew there was something in me that knew that neither of those options were okay for me. And so I basically emailed them back and let them know that I would be wrapping up my work for them and I would be, closing out all my cases and doing all the things, but that I'd be filing unemployment. And so I filed for unemployment and I had about 8 months of unemployment to figure things out. And in that time, I actually also ended up shutting down my fashion business and just made a whole lot of changes to really figure out, what am I here for? What am I using my life for? What is my calling? What is my bigger purpose? Why am I on this planet? And luckily I was kind of able to move through that. I had some savings, and right around that time, I was able to, when I shut down my fashion business is when I really started diving into money mindset stuff and really starting to access my personal power and understand what it means to be a CEO and not just a business owner, and really started doing the evolution and the growth work. And now, my coaching business is fantastic. I hit 6 figures within my first year. I'm on track to do 7 figures. And it really has shifted everything for me. And the coolest part is that anxiety and that depression and all that stuff, I don't experience that anymore because I'm no longer out of alignment with what I'm here to be doing with my life.
Great journey. And if you go back to the fashion business, you said you shut it down. What was sort of the key reasons for doing that?
Yeah, I had known for a while that I was frustrated with it. Honestly, I think a lot of it was that I didn't have the right mindset. And there's part of me that wonders if I'd had the right mindset, if I would have kept it. And another larger part of me that's like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing with your life. So a lot of it was alignment. I was working a lot and spinning wheels, and I felt like I was getting nowhere, and it was just frustrating. I felt every day I got home and I felt like I'd concurrently been running on a hamster wheel, which if you've seen hamsters, they run a lot, they put out a lot of energy, they get nowhere.
Yes.
And I'd also felt at the end of each day like I'd been beating my head against the wall. And so I was in meditation in the beginning of 2015 and just heard a very clear walk away. Shut it down. This isn't it. There's more available for you. And so 3 days later, I did. I didn't know what was on the other side of that. I didn't know what I would be saying yes to. I didn't know what was even possible for me outside of fashion, because a year prior, I told my mom, if I don't have fashion, I don't have a reason to live. So I basically just wiped the entire slate clean and walked away from everything that I knew, and was able to then create the business of my dreams because I had the courage to trust in letting go of what was not aligned for me.
That's so brave. And who helped you, or did anybody help you in this transition?
Yeah, a little bit. So right around the time that so it was like the weekend did that meditation. I meditated on that Saturday. So I got the message on Saturday. The weekend before that, I'd been at a money mindset retreat. 3 days later, I totaled my car. The day after that, I signed a $25,000 coaching contract with a coach. And then the day after that, it was like, shut down your fashion business. And so I did have a coach through the first 6 months of that process of shutting that down and opening up to what was next. But it's interesting that I didn't hire her for the purpose of helping me through it. She just happened to have been there. I just happened to have hired her and then realized that I was closing my fashion business.
And when you made the choice of picking her as a coach, what were the key things that you looked for in that coach?
To be honest, when I pick coaches for myself, they usually are brought into my path divinely. So this woman and I had connected at a workshop. She had then invited me to that money mindset workshop and had so many shifts and so many openings in 3 or 4 days that I just kind of knew. That's kind of how I picked my current coach as well, although I have known my current coach for years and years. But we just happened to reconnect. She had gotten certified in something that I was interested in learning more about, and I hired her. So oftentimes, when I know that it's time for me to up level, I actually don't go in search of a coach. I kind of let the universe guide me to who that person is going to be.
Okay, well, the next section we'll go into is the build section. So when someone asks, Bri, what do you do for a living now? How do you explain that?
I help people create the pathway to their dreams. So when people come to me, typically they know where they are. They know where they want to be, or at least have a general sense of what that might be for them. And their biggest question, people come to me, is like, but how am I going to get there? And so I help them find within that path that's going to lead them from their now to their future.
Great. And what's unique about how you help them find that path?
Most of what I do is intuitive. So a lot of the stuff I do, I don't have a methodology. Coaches are like, first you do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. And my understanding of how our lives work is that each and every one of us have a very unique expression of our life. If someone were to go out and try to replicate my path, they wouldn't necessarily have success with it, right? I did a big Facebook challenge in 2016, and served 3,000 people and made $100,000 in 90 days. Whereas a friend of mine did it around the same time and got 30 people in, right? Like, so everyone's path is so unique. My approach is, let's go within, let's identify all those things that are kind of like holding you back. And I do a lot of that through hypnotherapy, because for me, it's really important to combine the conscious mind with the subconscious mind. And so we do a lot of subconscious excavation and reprogramming. And then I help people really get in touch with themselves so that they can really access the answers that already live within them. You know, we're taught so much to not trust our intuition. And my offering is that your intuition is the only thing that will ever take you down the correct path.
Well, I certainly, I've used some hypnotherapy in a sporting context, basically underperforming in key moments, finals, etc. And I used a hypnotherapist and it helped hugely. What are some examples of how you've seen hypnotherapy help? Because I know a lot of people sort of hear the word and it's still, to me, it seems, I think meditation's become, a key fabric, especially for entrepreneurs. But I think hypnotherapy is still a little bit, I'm not quite sure. So what can you help us today to sort of understand it a little better?
Yeah, the way I see hypnotherapy is I liken our brains to like the hard drive of a computer. So when you go on your computer and you double click on something, say like, the Skype app. When you double click on the Skype app, it's programmed so that the Skype app opens. Well, oftentimes in our brains, we pick up viruses from life, right? Maybe your mom said to us, well, money doesn't grow on trees. And that got programmed into our subconscious. So that now every time we go to, say, open the monetary app in our brains, this belief that money doesn't grow on trees pops up. And it's like this virus, right? So it's like if you were to go into your computer and double click on the Skype app and your calendar app would open up. When things aren't functioning properly in the way that you want them to in order to create the results you want, if you want to be super, super, super massively wealthy and your mind is programmed to be in lack and be in poverty, you can't create wealth because the programming, the operating system that's running your brain is not aligned with that. So for me, hypnotherapy is really essentially like going into someone's hard drive, finding the virus, identifying what's caused that programming to be in there in the first place. We remove that programming and then we put in new programming that is aligned with what it is that you want to create. So for example, a good friend of mine came to me last year and she hadn't had a good night's sleep in probably, I think, 5 years. She slept maybe an hour at a time, and it was starting to have massive, massive repercussions for herself, for her business. She was having massive health complications because of it. She was having anxiety and panic attacks because her body wasn't getting the rest it needed. We did one session, which the hypnotherapy methodology I do only takes one session. And she had her first night's sleep that night. And she has slept through the night every night since. And it's been almost a year.
Wow.
So it's just really, for me, it's just a way to like get in, because we can work on money mindset on a conscious level, right? For example, it's always a good one because everyone always wants to talk about that. We can work on it on a conscious level, but to consciously reprogram your brain takes a lot of effort, sustained, like continuous, consistent effort for a long period of time. Whereas hypnotherapy gets straight into the subconscious. It gets right into the source of where that program came from and changes it.
And can you do this virtually? So have you got clients?
Yep. I have clients all over the world.
Great. Brilliant. Well, I'm sure people listening right now will be queuing up to get it, because I certainly get if it's one session, I've done it in sport, I'm lining up to do it for business. And your sort of ideal client. So, just describe your ideal client, who you do this for.
Yeah, I work mostly with women, although I have worked with men in the past, and I'm not opposed to working with men. But I transitioned out of women's wear into women's coaching,
Yes.
and just kind of haven't made the shift into. I've stopped using the female pronoun on my website, but just haven't really taken it much further than that. So I mainly work with women. And depending on if they come to me, a lot of my group clients are in corporate jobs, and they either want to get a job that's more aligned for them, or they want to start doing their own thing. So I work a lot with those people. The people that come to me for private are usually people, they might still be in corporate, but they have a really, really clear and oftentimes large vision that they just feel paralyzed by, or that they're having a hard time conceptualizing, creating for themselves. So, I work with people kind of on those two different levels, and I'll be starting a mastermind later on in 2019 as well, that is also going to be for entrepreneurs who are really looking to create like a soul aligned business in a massive way.
And what will your business, so you'll have the mastermind, which is great. And, I've got a mastermind. I think they're brilliant. What will your business look like in 3 years? Or what would you like it to look like in 3 years?
Yeah, so I did write my first book in 2017. So in 3 years, my goal is to have 2 additional books out there. I am actively meeting with book agents now about my second book, and going to be getting another book out into the world, if not at the end of 2019, probably at the beginning of 2020. And I am really, really looking forward to starting. I have at least 2 different foundations inside of me. One is to be helping women with lower incomes get access to feminine hygiene products. And another one is around education in terms of reproductive health and sexuality for women and girls. So those 2 things are definitely on the docket and kind of in the back of my mind percolating. Really focused on growing my coaching business right now, doing more books, taking on more stages, which came together brilliantly last year. So hoping for that momentum to continue. And then, within the next 3 years, definitely starting at least one, if not both of those foundations.
And what's your key source of new clients? How do you attract these great women?
I do mostly through social media. I think like 90% of my business has come through Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, I do a ton of podcast interviews. I love, love, love speaking on podcasts. And then, like I said, last year really transitioned into speaking at a lot of conferences, and, got some really good clients from that. It's amazing what writing a book can do for you. I had women that were kind of in my circle that the second I published my book, they pulled the trigger to work with me, because they were like, oh, we knew we wanted to work with you, but like the second you wrote that book, it was like, yes, now's the time. So, having a book is also very helpful in terms of clients and client generation.
Great. And on the Facebook aspect, what are a couple of key tips that has worked really well for you on using Facebook?
Value, 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 value. The money they make off Facebook generally comes from a 5-day free challenge that I run for people. I first started running it through a Facebook group, and that group has grown to, I think we're over 3,000 people or something now in just a few years, and have been continually just providing value to people and doing Facebook Lives in that private community, and continuing to run that 5-day free challenge, and really just giving people value and serving them in a really big way so that they can see what is available to them through working with me.
Great. And how do you manage the logistics of, running your coaching practice and having such a big community? How do you keep on top of that?
I do have a virtual assistant who helps with, I write all my content, but she goes in and schedules everything, and, just really helps out. This year or next year, I'll be getting a more permanent assistant,
Mm-hmm.
to help more with like not only that, but also my scheduling, emails, travel arrangements, like all of the details and the things, because I'm getting to a point where it's starting to become more than I can handle. But having a virtual assistant definitely helps. I did hire an assistant coach last year who's helping me lead and run my group training program. And then I also have some people that help me out with sales, Facebook advertising, my Instagram account, all sorts of stuff.
Right. And some of the biggest challenges, what are some of the biggest challenges you face at the moment?
At the moment, I have kind of unlocked another layer of my money story, and just had a coaching session today about it. In fact, I'm actively in the process of rewriting that. So that's concurrently like a challenge, but also super exciting because I feel like it's something I've been bumping up against for the last few years. So to actually have, put a flashlight on it and seeing it for the first time, being like, oh yeah, that. And now I'm, in the beautiful place of just witnessing it and holding space for it and then working on transforming it.
Great. Well, before we go into the next section, I'd like to mention our YouTube channel called Build, Live, Give. You get great tips to help corporate escapees, just like Bri, to rapidly grow. So please go and look at the content, subscribe, and if you love the content and think other corporate escapees would benefit, please share. So Bri, the next section's the live section. So what are some daily habits you do to help you be successful?
I am ruthless about my morning routine. I started doing my morning routine about 4 years ago, and it changed everything for me, everything. And I continue to deepen and refine my morning practice. So one of the things I'm doing right now is a Kundalini meditation every single morning. I try to do at least a little bit of yoga. I do breath work, journaling. What else? Oh, I have my cup of tea every morning. That's like one of my things. And I cuddle with my cat every morning on the couch as well. So that's kind of my way to kick off my day. And really, I see it as essentially setting my energy up for the day so that I'm approaching my business from a place of alignment, from a place of connection, from a place of power. Whereas before, especially when I had my day job, I would lay in bed until the very last minute. And then I would rush around and grab breakfast and eat breakfast in the car while I was driving to work. And just I had this frantic energy, and it played out in so many areas of my life. It wasn't just the drive to work. It was the rest of my day, every single day as well. And I would just spin myself into this place. And so now I'm just more purposeful about my energy. One of the other things that really keeps me sane in terms of practices is that I say no to a lot of things. In fact, I think I say no more than I say yes, because I just keep really good boundaries around me. And I say yes to things that light me up, and I say no to things that drain me. So I would say those are probably the biggest things that really keep me centered and grounded and connected.
And around that saying no, I know it's easy to say, hard to do. So what are some tips you've got around, creating those boundaries that you've done around saying no?
Yeah, I just always have to remember that it's never about the other person. It's really just about me and what's best for me. So I was just in Los Angeles for a week seeing some clients, and I did, I saw some really, really, really good friends, but I always get the oh, can we go out for coffee? And I just have a really hard rule that I don't do that, because I can't, I protect my energy so much so that I can be of service to the people that are really invested in working with me. And so I say no to any and all coffee requests, because that means if I'm giving of my energy there, that means that then I don't get to give of my energy to the people who are really, truly invested in working with me. And it was a hard boundary to start with, believe me, because I was like, oh, people are going to hate me and they're going to think I'm a terrible person. And they're all these stories, right? And I had to just basically block all those stories out and be like, I'm saying no, not against this person, but rather for myself and my clients. And I just had to like shift that around. Like, I'm not putting boundaries in place to, hate someone else or to reject someone else. I'm putting boundaries in place to hold myself and my clients and my loved ones more powerfully.
Well, the next section is the give section. So what's a cause or a community that you're passionate about and why?
Yeah, I am currently in a temporary living space. I left LA last year and I'm relocating to New York this year. And I've been living in Minneapolis since about April. And I, for whatever reason, wanted to kind of get out of my own way when I came here. And one of the things that I started doing was volunteering at a local homeless shelter. And it's been a really great experience for me in so many ways. There's something really powerful about remembering that like all the problems I face as an entrepreneur, not really problems. Like they're just really, there's so much more out there that people are facing. And so for me to be of service in someone else's life and to make someone else's life a little easier, truly has been just such a gift. I've really, really enjoyed it. And then this year also I gave my first full scholarship to a recipient to work with me for coaching, which was also an incredible moment for me. So
brilliant. And the last section is the action section. So I'll ask you some questions and get some rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what's your top 3 productivity tips?
The first one would be Pomodoro, which is the method where you set I set a 45-minute timer and then give myself a 15-minute break, and then a 45-minute timer and a 15-minute break. And I'm really clear about, okay, in these 45 minutes, this is what I'm tackling. I do nothing else but what's on my docket for the 45 minutes. Give myself a 15-minute break to use the restroom, refill my tea, move my body, refocus, and then get back into my next 45 minutes. The other productivity tip is removing distractions. I actually ended up getting a second cell phone last year because I was constantly on social media. And so I took social media off of my main phone. And now, my business phone is only on between the hours of 9 and 5. I don't take any business calls outside those hours. I don't check social media outside those hours. I don't get on social media when I'm in my Pomodoro time. It's just removing distractions. All my notifications are turned off on all my phones for everything. And I think the third tip that kind of ties into that is really just focusing, like getting really clear on what am I creating? Where am I going? I usually do like a larger vision. So I'll do a year vision and then I chunk that down into, okay, what am I doing this quarter? And then I chunk that down into what am I doing this month? And then I chunk that down into what am I doing this week? And then I chunk that down into what am I focusing on today? So that I know every single day, the actions that I'm taking, the direction that I'm moving in every single day is contributing to that year-end goal and vision.
And what are some apps or software that you use to help you be productive?
I do use an app called, hold on, let me pull it up. It is called Productive. It's an app where you can put in your morning checklist, your afternoon checklist, your evening checklist. It can have weekly or monthly things that you have to do. And it just really, it pops up and it tells me this morning, don't forget to meditate and don't forget to, I chant, don't forget to chant on Tuesdays and which actually I did forget to do this morning. So I'm going to need to do that after we get off this call and, really checking in with my vision. And it really, really, really helps. I also use Trello to communicate with my VA and really give her assignments to do. And then I use Slack as a communication for my group training. So they get to pop in there, ask questions. I get to go in there and deliver value. It's great.
Brilliant. And what are some books that you'd recommend and why? Other than your own, of course.
Oh yes, that one. That's number one. No, I'm just kidding. The Alchemist is one of my favorite books in the whole wide world, really talking about that journey, because I think a lot of people want to get from A to B, and they forget that it's the part in between A and B that's actually the most important. And I really, really love that book. I'm really into, if you can't tell, with the hypnotherapy stuff, like neuroscience, and just, I'm reading this great book right now called The Mind Illuminated, which is the intersection of neuroscience and meditation. Just fascinating. I nerd out on a lot of stuff like that. But another really great kind of general book is called The Miracle Morning. And it talks a lot more about what I was saying in terms of morning routines and like getting your energy set up for the day.
Great. And that's by Hal
Elrod.
That's right. Excellent. So, look, you've given so much great advice on this podcast, but what's some parting advice you'd love to leave us corporate escapees?
One thing that I just always like to remind people is that, say, if you're like currently in something, or, I mean, even if you've already left it, I don't believe that the universe ever gifts us with a vision that is impossible for us. And if you have been given this hint or this whisper that it's time to pursue something new, or if you're currently in pursuit of that new thing, just remember that there's a reason that you were gifted with that whisper, with that nudge. And you would never, ever, ever be gifted with that if it were impossible for you. So the fact that you have that whisper, you've had that nudge, means that it's completely, totally, 100% possible for you. You might not be able to see the path right now, but from my experience, the path reveals itself. So trust that it's there and just take one step every day. That's really all any of us are doing every single day.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bri. So, as I said, thanks for all of your rich insights here. How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so my website is briseeley.com. That's BRIS as in Sam, EELEY.com. You can find me on all of the socials, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, at Bri Seeley as well. I think I'm like the only one, or definitely like you'll know which one I am.
Yes. And we'll have that and also all the other links in the show notes. But Bri, once again, thanks a lot for coming on, and also for the cameo of the cat as well. Thank you, Cat, as well.
Thank you. And I will tell Peaches you say thank you as well.
Thanks, Bri. I really enjoyed this interview with Bri, and I had 3 key takeouts. So the first one is treat live video like a Band-Aid. Just rip it off. I think that was great advice. The second is your brain is like a computer. It's like a computer hard drive, and it can get viruses. So you got to clear those. And she had some great tips around hypnotherapy. And then the third is the power of saying no. I know for me, I really don't do that well, and I'm going to take her lead on it. So I'd love to hear what you got out of this podcast. Please email me at paul@buildlivegive.com. Also, please share it with other corporate escapees who are trying to find both lifestyle and financial freedom.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening, and be brave.